the Black Law Dictionary and you look at the Webster Dictionary, you'll see that there's two different definitions for many of the same words. So our thing is that we still encourage people to go learn the English language, you know, and take it farther than just the basic information in which you know. Go into numerology. Look at how they use it for law, and I guess that goes back in, you know, to their ideology of sovereignty and all that too. But, you know, still don't give up the English language because it still has much value for us to use in this day and time. So go ahead, Griff.
Okay, going back to what Mike was saying about with Dr. York, and he said he put the languages together for us. And as Dr. York taught us that, you know, according to that mythological story of the Tower of Babel where God came and he dispersed all of the languages where nobody could communicate with one another. So what Dr. York said he did was took all of the languages and put them all back together so we would be able to communicate in a language that we all could understand, be able to communicate with one another again. Again, as Mike is saying, we have to learn the English language and master the English language because the English language is simply another form of hieroglyphics to those of us who have studied it, and we realize that this is what's happening. For instance, we learned in Egyptian stories that Osiris was cut into 14 pieces, right? And then that on the third, they found all the pieces but the 14th piece, which was the penis, and it was swallowed by a fish. Okay? Now, when you look at this story, this is why the Egyptians didn't eat catfish, is because the penis was swallowed by Osiris, so they felt like if they ate the catfish, they would swallow the penis or eat the penis of their deity. Well, the word for fish in Hebrew and Arabic is the word noon, N-U-N, N-O-O-N, like our 12 o'clock noon. Well, if you go to the Hebrew alphabet, you'll find out that the 14th letter in the Hebrew alphabet is the letter Nun, which is, again, a fish. So you see, they constructed their languages based off of our stories and our numbers. Follow? Another story. I'm sorry, you got something?
Oh, well, you mentioned the fish, and I would say the fish is also associated with who people call Jesus Christ, and I believe that's also associated with sexuality and things like that. So, but you can continue on, brother. You can go on deep.
Yeah, that's from the Vesica Pisces. We spoke on that in depth in the African Origin Part 2 book, where we made the association with the Vesica Pisces and the fish in Christianity. Okay, so now when you look at, say, the number 5, right? Now, we think that this was just something that was, you know, just a system that they created, but, I mean, you know what I'm saying, it has a formula that they created. The letter 5, or, you know, number 5, F-I, is a Fibonacci number. I'm not sure if you're familiar with a Fibonacci number, but it's like the first 5 Fibonacci numbers are 1
and 3, and then...
Right.
Yeah, Fibonacci code, yeah, I'm definitely familiar with that.
Right. Right. So you take a number and then you add the next number and then you add a number until you keep getting to a certain number, right? So 5 just happens to be the 5th Fibonacci number. But you look at Fi for Fibonacci, it's abbreviated. Then you got the letter V, which is what? The Roman numeral number for what? 5, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you got the 5th letter in the English alphabet is what? E. F-I-V-E. It's no coincidence that they do these things because they are speaking a language for those that know, as opposed to the rest of us who are just speaking English from a grammatical point of view, and we're not looking deeper into what they're giving us. You follow?
Definitely, yes.
You know what I'm saying? We think that red is, they just came up. No, they didn't just come up with red. Red is R-E as in Ray, and then you got D. What's the 4th letter? D. So in Egyptian cosmology, you got Atum-Re, Atun-Re, Amun-Re, and Anun-Re. You got the 4 points. And you know what I'm saying? When the sun sets, it gives off a so-called red appearance. So they don't just come up with these letters and these names and these words by happenstance. It was constructed, as Mike was saying, by people like Francis Bacon when they, created the English language, or a better form of the Anglican language when they created the English language. I'll step off at that point.
Oh, right. No, you touched on so many points, and as you both pointed out, to master the English language, and that's why I applaud, respect, and love the brother Michael Eric Dyson. And I had a Twitter battle regarding Bill O'Reilly even accepting Michael Eric Dyson as a relevant person to speak to, and I don't understand Bill O'Reilly's credentials to even make that assumption, but it is what it is in this kind of society. And I also wanted to reiterate for the people that legalese would be another language that they should dive into and, learn and embrace, because we seem to be the ones mostly affected by the legal system in America. As far as numerology goes, before I dive back into the African topic, the number 13, Phil Valentine gave us a wonderful video that's out there circulating on the Internet about the power of the number 13, and McDonald's is the number 13, and everything has the number 13 within it, and people seem to follow it as a cult following out here. But, I understand the power of the number 13, and I even see how they use it, because when I was taking a test for my new job, that number 13 seemed to have been popping up a lot. It is never a coincidence to me that these things happen now that I have an open knowledge of certain things and how they work, or as Phil Valentine would say, work our own magic against us. So what is the relevant information regarding the number 13 that you can give out there for the people so that they have that different perspective from both of you brothers? Brother Mike, would you like to go first?
Well, when we look at the number 13, if we do the numerology, it ends up being number 4. But one thing I'd rather look at is we just entered the 13th zodiac, which, used to be a sacred concept. You look at Jesus, you can tell it's sacred because if you look at the Jesus story, he had 12 disciples, plus the one would be the 13. You had the 12 tribes that we read about in the Bible, or the 12 tribes that we read about in the Quran. But then the sacred one is that woman, which is the daughter, so it's the number 13. They purposely took the number 13, like if you go into a building, they don't have a 13th floor, trying to make it spooky. But it's really a sacred number when you look at the, I know I said liberal arts and sciences before, but, we call it liberation arts and sciences as far as in our environment. So the number 13 is a very important number for us to study, and me personally, I'm still trying to get a total grasp of the number 13, because there's so many different ways that you go, and I know Grippo can explain it a lot better than I can.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Okay, first I want to go back to where you said that the McDonald's is 13, right? Well, I see it, and I see that, but I also see it another way. I see 13 as the zodiac sign Aries. It's the second flip. Okay, but now to go back to what Mike was saying about 13 and being the woman and it's sacred, etc. Is 13 is transformation, rebirth, regenerative, etc. But again, you're dealing with the letter M. M is the 13th letter in the Hebrew letter alphabet as well as the 13th letter in the English alphabet. M represents the waters, which is what you see when you see that McDonald's symbol as well. You see the up and down motion of waves, which deals with Mary. Mary is the root word of the word maritime, or marine, which is dealing with water, okay? Because water is transformative. Water is regenerative, etc. 13 also goes into, when you're dealing with these religious concepts, you find that as when the people that look at the McDonald's thing, they say, well, it's 1 and a 3, which equals a beat, right? I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
When you put a 1 and a 3 together, they create a beat. So when you look at your religious text, the first word in the Hebrew text is bereshit. And when you move to the New Testament, the first word is biblios. When you move to the Quran, the first word is bi'ismi, all beginning with the letter B, or the number 13. The most dominant character in the Old Testament is Moses. The most dominant character in the New Testament is the Messiah. And, of course, the most dominant character in the Quran is Muhammad. Okay? So when you look at this and you look at the deity that's responsible for these particular books, or the deity that they worship in these books, you come up with a deity called El Shaddai, or Shaddai, right? El Shaddai is actually a feminine word that they find in the Quran. You can find it in your Bible in Genesis 28, verse 3, and you can also find it in your Quran in Surah 53.5. Okay, now if you notice, and we've been talking about numerology, 2 plus 8 plus 3 is 13, as well as 5 plus 3 plus 5 is 13. So they put a code over it, and you're dealing again with a feminine deity, being that the word Shaddai, if the root of the word Shaddai is the word Shad, S-H-A-D, and that means breast. So you're dealing with a feminine energy, a feminine deity. Again, as Mike was saying, the 13th tribe in the Bible for the Jews was Dinah, and for the Muslims it was Bashima, I think it was, or Bathsheba, something like that. But you know what I'm saying? It was a feminine deity. I mean, the female that they always left out that became the 13th tribe. We could go on this all day now, so I'm gonna stop on that one.
That's definitely. Oh man, you just went into the femininity of religion, and I know they've taken it out so much, the feminine aspect, and you brought back the light of certain names of gods or goddesses in the Bible, and it was practically a male and female god from the beginning, and for some reason now we only have one deity. That's probably why I don't embrace religion as I should, because I believe, strongly in the women and their energy as a counter to mine. And I love that aspect of it. But I want to go back into the African nations. The other day I seen a post, and it kind of struck me off guard. It said, we should be thankful, or to the likes of, we should be thankful of praying to the African continent and the people for us being here. Now, I understood that, but as I look at today's current events, I see them emulating or wanting to be either the worst of us or us in general as Black Americans. So in my context, I say we are responsible for uplifting and bringing them back to what they might have lost due to religion, what is known as white supremacy, colonialism, apartheid, the caste system, self-hatred, borders, tribalism.